Well, we have got a Ukraine deal that appears to be imminent. So they say. It's coming together is what it sounds like. I don't know. We'll find out. But Vladimir Putin has said that normal relations with America have been restored, which, take that for what it's worth. Obviously, I'm not a fan of Vladimir Putin. I think he's a lunatic. But if you compare that to the rhetoric this guy had 3 years ago toward the United States, I'd say that's a step in the right direction. Now, here's my thing on Russia so we can get this out of the way. No, I'm not a paid Kremlin bot. Okay? The Russians don't pay me money. The Israelis don't pay me money. Neither the Republicans or the Democrats pay me. The FBI, the CIA, all groups that I've been accused of working for, none of them pay me money. Believe me, I'd have a whole lot bigger of a house than I do if those people... Actually, no, I probably wouldn't, because I don't need big fancy houses to feel good about myself. I'd probably drive a nicer car than a Hyundai, though. We'll leave it at that. In this house, I wouldn't have a mortgage on it. I would have paid it off by now if those groups were paying me, but I don't. I wouldn't be recording this show from the spare bedroom in my paid-off house. How about that? If all those people were paying me, but they're not. So I'm not a fan of Russia. I'm not a fan of Vladimir Putin. I think he's a lunatic and a tyrant, but he is what he is. He's there. He ain't going nowhere for the foreseeable future. Vladimir Putin is like if you've got a crazy lunatic redneck neighbor, right? He's a drunk. Every now and then at 2 o'clock in the morning when he's had a few too many, after he smacks the shit out of his old lady, he walks out, cracks around from his shotgun up in the air. Not a fun person to live by. Maybe he's not even your neighbor. Maybe he's down the block, right? Not a fun person to live by. And if he goes too far, you'll absolutely defend yourself. But at the same time, maybe it's not the best idea to just antagonize that guy. Maybe you don't ding-dong ditch him. You know, maybe you don't throw one of the, the $7 eggs at his door. Maybe you don't constantly call the police on him for noise complaints, just knowing it's going to rile him up. Things like that. You don't have to be best friends with the guy, but he's, again, this is a common trend on this show that we talk about. There are people that you don't necessarily want to be friends with, but you also definitely don't want to be on their bad side. That's kind of Putin. He is what he is, man. There's 3 global superpowers, the US, China, and Russia. We've got the majority of the nukes. Maybe it's not a good idea. Well, it's not maybe. It's not a good idea to piss off people who are not only have nukes, but are also a little unstable. Maybe we should try to stay on their good side. Not at the expense of our own best interests, but we shouldn't go out of our way to fuck with them. And liberals are angry that Putin's saying, hey, relationships with America are the best they've been in years. Relations with America. They're upset about this. They find and we'll go into detail about other shit they're pissed about later. They're mad about this. Again, it's the 80-20 thing with Donald Trump. 80% of people say, yeah, we don't got to be friends with Russia, but it's probably for the better if they're not constantly threatening to blow us up every other day. If the threat of nuclear war isn't constant, that's probably for the better. And then the 20% goes, no, I want to get nuked. I want war with Russia. That's a good thing. We need it. Fucking idiots. Idiots. Partisan-brained idiots, tribalistic morons.
You idiots!
They really are. And so Zelenskyy has, of course, now that the negotiations have been heating up, because it's just Trump and Russia negotiating right now, and Zelenskyy up until now hasn't been at the table, and a lot of people are upset about this, but here's my thing, okay? If I'm going to buy a car for my 16-year-old daughter at the dealership, right? And she's not going to contribute anything to it. It's a birthday present. Her grades were good. I'm just buying her the car, okay? The conversation is between me and the dealership. She doesn't have a say. It's not her money. Yes, I'm reducing the president of Ukraine to a 16-year-old girl right now. It's not her money. She doesn't get to argue about whether or not we get the all-weather floor mats. Okay? She doesn't get to decide if she gets heated seats or not. That's up to me. The negotiation is between me and the salesman.
Well, I argued with my dad about that when he bought me my car. So
you're Zelenskyy.
And I won.
Yeah, that's not how this is going to work. The kid doesn't get to go to the dealership and start making all these demands with her dad's money. If dad's paying for the car, you shut the fuck up and you take what you get. Because that's the thing. He said, I will never accept any decisions between the United States and Russia about Ukraine that we're not involved in. Never. Okay, but you'll accept our money. So that's like the 16-year-old girl going, I will never accept a car that my dad buys for me if I'm not there at the negotiation table. Okay, then you don't get the car. You don't get the money for the car. How about that? Now, JD Vance went on stage in Munich, and we'll talk about that later. More of that later. It's an 18-minute speech. You guys should check it out. I'm not going to play the whole thing. We'll play a clip of it later. But JD Vance went on stage in Munich, Germany, and among the things he said, one of the big takeaways was he basically said, you guys here in Europe need to get your own military. We have been bankrolling you for far too long. It's time for you to defend yourselves, because while the Russians appear to be kept at bay right now, you need to be able to protect yourselves in case they ever come through again. Like, this is kind of pathetic, the way you guys have just abandoned military spending, assuming that the U.S. is just going to come in and save the day every time something bad happens, because to be fair, the historical precedent up until now, that's been the case. Something bad happens in Europe, we save the day. Maybe we're a little late to the party, but the day don't get saved without us. So Vance went over there and was like, look, you guys need a standing European army. And they booed him. They booed him. A couple hours later, Zelenskyy goes on stage and says, it's time for a standing European army. We can no longer trust the United States. And he got a standing ovation. And now there's calls all over Europe from politicians and cultural leaders saying, we need to get our own military. Did we just trick these guys into doing what we wanted them to do? That's what we've been saying. I've been screaming it on this show since we started. Europe needs to pay for their own military. We need to stop bankrolling the defense of all these NATO countries. And they fought and fought and fought and fought. And then finally, Trump comes along, a guy they just hate so much. We send Vance over there to troll him. And they're like, fuck this. I'll show you. I'll do exactly what you've been saying you wanted me to do for the last 10 years. Okay. That's like a kid going, oh, yeah? Well, I'm going to eat my broccoli tonight. Like, all right. You can clean your room, too? What else are you going to do? Hey, I think my car needs to be washed while you're at it. It's trash days tomorrow. Why don't you bring that out, too, when you're out there? I mean, that's what this is. We need a standing army. Yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree. Europe needs to get its own standing army and defend itself. Now, if there's like an existential threat and like Putin was really rolling through all of Europe, that would be a different story. But here's the thing, guys. What we've seen is that Russia's a paper tiger. That's what this Ukraine thing has shown. Because Ukraine is not a NATO country. NATO does not have, they've got boots on the ground, but not boots involved in, that we know of, an active hot war with Russian troops. And while they've gained ground in Ukraine, they've done it incredibly slowly. So anyone who believes that Putin, once he's done with Ukraine, is going to roll through Europe is insane. The message has been sent. They have been exposed. They are not who we thought they were. They do not possess the capability to take over the world. He can barely get through Ukraine. If he decided to start attacking NATO countries and NATO actually united and started fighting him, he'd get his ass beat. He's not going to do it. He knows. The game's up. The jig is up. He did his thing. He lost. He didn't get... Here's the thing with this. What you got to realize. When it's all said and done, when they strike a deal, and they will, but when they strike a deal with Ukraine, which is going to involve Ukraine ceding some territory, nobody's going to win. Because you're going to have millions of people that are dead, billions of dollars that have been wasted. Ukraine will lose territory that it had prior to the war starting, and then Russia will gain territory, but not all the territory that it wanted. So Russia will have lost millions of people and billions of dollars and didn't even accomplish its goal. So everyone's going to lose in this situation here. That's what this boils down to. There are no winners here other than the military-industrial complex. Everybody lost from this. And if we can take, this is what war is. Nobody wins from this shit. So maybe in the future, countries will look at this situation and use it as a learning experience and go, maybe we should let cooler heads prevail in the future. Just maybe. I also find the pushback on Trump for trying to make a deal here hilarious. They're fighting Trump for saying, hey, Ukraine's probably going to have to cede some land, which has always been, first off, the land they're going to have to cede, largely pro-Russian. Like, imagine if New Mexico took on this super pro-Mexico, anti-United States, like very rabid form of governance, right? And Mexico's like, we want New Mexico. I mean, we wouldn't be thrilled about it, but would it really be the end of the world if New Mexico seceded and joined up with Mexico in that situation? I mean, we wouldn't be pissed if that were the case. Most of us that were sane wouldn't be. We wouldn't be happy about it, but it wouldn't be the end of the world. That's basically what you've got going on in Ukraine right now. It's very, very pro-Russia territories that want to be part of Russia. And that's part of the difference of the two countries, because here's the thing. If there was a state that just outright hated being part of the United States, they can secede. They can leave the country anytime they want to. They can't do that. Those regions in Ukraine can't do that. So people that want to herald Ukraine as just this beacon on the hill of democracy in Eastern Europe, they're full of shit. They haven't had elections in close to a decade. Because Zelenskyy keeps suspending them. Or excuse me, not close to a decade, but they haven't had elections since this started because Zelenskyy keeps suspending them while calling Trump a dictator. Suspending elections while calling Trump a dictator. Don't even give me the war-torn bullshit, because it's not like the whole country's war-torn. We also, this horrible dictatorship here in the United States, we had this little thing called the Civil War, where we fought each other. And the whole country was war-torn. And they still held elections. We had this thing called the War of 1812, where we were invaded by a foreign occupying force. And we held an election the first year of that war. So don't give me that shit. And Democrats, you guys that are upset that the Ukrainians are going to have to cede some of their land. Fuck, man, if you guys would have spent the last 4 years caring this much about America's national sovereignty, you might have won the election. But here we are. Now Trump's even saying that Ukraine's going to have to pay us back. Sorry, kids. $500 billion. You got to pay us back for all the fraud you committed. Let's also consider what Ukraine is. Now, they are not an ally of ours. We have no obligation to do anything for them. This is a country that banned and arrested Russian Orthodox church leaders after the war started due to being sympathetic with Russia. That's right, religious persecution. You know, the one thing this country was founded against. They went around and arrested Christians because they had a sect of Christianity that they didn't like. They've run suspended and fraudulent elections. They've bought off American politicians and their family members like the Bidens. They've stolen our money for years now to the tune of several $100 billion. Also, all you woke retards, they are blatantly racist. Blatantly racist over there. You think America's bad? Go to Ukraine. See how they treat the gays. See how they treat black people. Because I seem to recall videos, if you guys don't, I recall them, videos of black people trying to board the trains to get out of Ukraine and being shoved off as the trains were driving away. That's Ukraine. That's who you guys want to pour all of our money into. Kind of like the pronouns for Palestine idiots. The short bus brigade, the watermelon gang.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked what you saw, be sure to click the link in the description to get the full episode on Rumble. If you prefer to listen along, you could actually get us on Spotify, Spreaker, and iHeartRadio. You can also go to www.outlawstreamers.com to learn more about not just my show, but tons of other great shows and all the exciting projects they have coming up. Follow my socials at Caleb Isn't Funny on Twitter and Instagram, at Caleb Salvatore Comedy on the Chinese Spy app that is TikTok, and be sure to like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Thanks, and we'll see you every Saturday for brand new episodes of That's Based. Peace.